Hello everyone and welcome to this digital glaucoma support group. This evening we're going to be talking about living with glaucoma, and we're going to get some practical hints and tips from somebody with glaucoma and be exploring what it means from a personal perspective to live with glaucoma and some of the things that can help people to live well with glaucoma and to live life to the fullest. So I'm Liz Ball, Glaucoma UK's Development Manager for Northern England. With me is Philippa Mason, who's our Development Manager for Scotland, and Philippa is going to be keeping an eye on the chat and Q&A. And we also have Joanna Hodgkinson, our Head of Support Services, who's going to be looking after you if you're joining on Facebook and responding to comments there and feeding in comments from Facebook into Zoom. And I'm delighted to welcome our speaker this evening, Joanne Knight. She's going to be sharing her experiences of living with glaucoma and some of the things that have helped her. And I know she's also really keen to hear about your experiences and the things that have helped you. Of course, everybody's situation is unique, and something that helps one person won't necessarily work for another. But by sharing experiences, we can all learn, we can experiment, and hopefully all find something that can actually improve our lives and make living with glaucoma a little easier. So before I bring Joanne in, just a few quick things about how the session's going to run. We will be running 2 polls during the session, just so that we can see how much you and learning how useful you're finding the session. Philippa, if you could launch the first poll for us, please. So the polls just ask you how much you know about living with glaucoma. And if you could just give a quick response to that now, and then we'll ask the same question again at the end, just to give us an idea of how useful it's been. We do want the session to be interactive, so conversation between you and speaker, Joanne. There are a couple of ways you can take part. If you've got a question, then please pop it in the question and answer box, and Philippa or I will put it to Joanne. And if you've got a comment or you want to share your experience, you can type that into the chat box in Zoom. If you're watching on Facebook, you can comment on the feed. And if you've got a question on the Facebook feed, then Joanna will feed that into Zoom. So without any more delay, let's get started. So, Jo, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Can we start? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your glaucoma? For example, when you were diagnosed, how that happened, and what's happened since?
Right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Joanne, but call me Jo. I'll probably answer to anything really within reason. I'm 69 years old, mother of 3, grandmother to 6. I'm a retired administrator, worked with the Open University, and my hobbies are crafting. Now, when I hit my 60th birthday, I got the letter from the government that said, oh, you are now entitled to free eye tests and free prescriptions. Now, I'd been having my eye tests, but the optician had said to me, oh, you only need reading glasses. So I basically sort of missed a few of my eye appointments because I thought, oh, I'll just nip into Pound Down and get some reading glasses. So off I went to the opticians, and they did the puff test, and the optician came straight out to me before I went into her office, and she said, I need you to go to the emergency eye clinic now. Don't go anywhere else, go straight to the emergency eye clinic. Well, I was a bit confused, and my daughter was with me because a couple of months earlier I'd snapped my Achilles tendon, so my foot was in a boot. So my daughter took me up to the eye clinic, which was about a 39-minute drive away from where we were. And yeah, they diagnosed I had bilateral primary open angle glaucoma. And they said that basically, she sort of said to me, you're going to be on eye drops for the rest of your life, and you need to notify the DVLA. And that was the information I got. So I kind of walked out of the appointment a little stunned, you know, because I'd had no symptoms. I no headaches, no nothing. It's just that when I was working, you know, every now and again the cursor would disappear, and I'd be thinking, oh, it's just because I'm getting old, my eyesight's going, so, you know, hey ho. It was a shock for me to be told, but to some extent not really, because I didn't know an awful lot about glaucoma. But to suddenly find that, you know, oh, now you've got this thing to deal with, that was where the shock came in, and nobody had given me any information about it. And that was the other thing that sort of got to me. But I went home and started attending my eye appointments at the hospital eye clinic, and that's been my life ever since.
Brilliant, thank you. So you talked there about it being a real shock at the beginning, which I'm sure many people here can relate to. Can you tell us a bit about sort of how those thoughts and feelings have developed over time from that initial really horrible shock to now?
Well, at first, ignorance kind of, it was a shock. Yes, I got glaucoma. What is glaucoma? What does it mean? What's it all about? How do you get glaucoma? Those were the things that I didn't know. So the element of initial worry wasn't there because I didn't know what I was worrying about. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I did know that you could go blind. And that was the thing that got to me, that I was going to lose my sight. And with the loss of my sight, I would lose my independence because I was still driving at the time. And that was the thing that bothered me. And I was sort of alone with all of this. And I went to the eye clinic, and the consultant said to me, if you keep up the regime that we're going to put you on, you can retain the sight that you have now for the rest of your life. So that kind of blew out the I'm going to lose my sight worry. If I was a good girl, I would retain at least a modicum of sight for the rest of my life. And over time, I've gotten used to my sight, how I work with my sight, what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And I've now sort of settled into it. And because of my sight, my life in and of itself has done a 360 degree. The life you know, we also know what we're going to do in life, and this is my plan for my life. And 99% of the time, life says, no, it isn't. I've got something else in store for you. And that's what happened with me. The glaucoma was my, no, it isn't. It's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. And it turned it around. But it turned it around in an absolutely fantastic way. And people sort of look at me shocked when I say, I've got glaucoma, I've got, you know, I'm registered partially sighted, but my life is fantastic. And they go, really? You know, but up to this point, yeah, glaucoma has been the making of me, for want of a better phrase.
We might come back to that point a little later, I think, perhaps. And what have the main challenges been for you, perhaps sort of with treatment, managing treatment, coming to terms with glaucoma emotionally, and the fact that you've got a lifelong eye disease, or perhaps more sort of practical things about getting out and about, or just generally living your life? Main challenges been?
Yeah, the challenges were for 2 years after I was diagnosed, I was alone trying to find solutions. I could no longer see properly to do my work. And so I went out and I bought endless magnifiers because I didn't know what suited me. I've got a drawer full of magnifiers that just didn't work because I didn't know what to buy. And I would go out and I would trip over, my friend would say trip over air, but it's not air. I'd be at work, somebody would leave something in the aisle and I would go over it because I wasn't told then, but I'd lost my peripheral vision. So anything high, low, or to the sides, I couldn't see. The workmates didn't understand because a couple of months before, I was perfectly fine. So when I asked them, please, can you write in a darker pen for me if you need me to type something or something, they didn't understand. So they'd still write in pencil or biro, and I couldn't see that. And that was kind of frightening because, again, it was a couple of years ago, I could have seen that easily, and it was just finding that the things I used to do, as I think is a song that said, the things I used to do, I don't do them anymore because I couldn't do them anymore because my vision, being told you have a lifelong illness, as it were, disease, that's hard. And it just sort of, it pushed me into thinking differently, if you see what I mean. It made me have to. I trip over my grandchildren because I didn't see them, One day I broke a glass on the carpet and I was absolutely petrified because I couldn't see the pieces of the glass in the carpet. And I was fearful that I was going to be treading on glass and cut myself. So it scared me in some ways, but it also pulled me up and said, look, you're not going to be able to do the things you used to do. You're going to have to come to terms with that. And you're going to have to find a different way through life if you're going to get through this. It was difficult because, again, my family, they tried to support, but they didn't know how to, because I didn't know what kind of support I needed. And one day I just thought, I loved reading, and I thought, okay, if I can't read a book anymore, I will listen to a book. And I found Audible books in the library, excuse me. And as I was checking out the book, the librarian said, we've got a book group for visually impaired people. And I went, oh, okay. So I joined that and I met other visually impaired people, and suddenly things were much brighter because it wasn't just me who knocked over a glass of water because I didn't see it. It wasn't just me who spent half my life patting the counter to find that plastic lid that I just put down. Excuse me. And so through this group, I met an ECLO from the eye clinic, the liaison officer. She said to me, go and get registered and we'll take it from there. Now, I'd asked my consultant about registering, and he said, oh, the only thing you're going to get is free rail travel. Well, I didn't travel by train, so I didn't bother with it. So she told me to get registered. I got registered. Boom. They came round, they brought all sorts of aids for me. They showed me different light bulbs that I could use to get better lighting in my home. And they trained me how to use my long cane. excuse me. And the long cane gave me the confidence to go out, because I'd go out, I couldn't see. One day, my daughter worked at the Open University with me, and one day I was walking down the corridor and I heard a voice say, "Hi, Mum." I hadn't recognized my own daughter, but with the long cane, I could go out and I could feel confident that I wasn't going to trip over a pushchair or another person or bang into somebody. And it also, other people would move out of the way because they'd see me and they go, "Oh, okay, she can't see me, or she might not be able to see me." The assumption in the general public is, if you've got a long cane, you can't see anything. And obviously we know that's not necessarily true, but people would move. So there was less chance of me tripping over. Seems I've got a frog in my throat somehow. So getting the equipment I needed to manage, and at the hospital, we tried so many different eye drops, and eventually we managed to settle into a routine. I think I resented it. I had numerous operations. I had cataract operations. I've had trabeculectomy. But apparently I'm an aggressive healer. So by the time I went back for my checkup, it had healed over. I've had laser treatments. And every time I had an operation, I'd make friends with somebody else who would come in for the same operation. We go back to the eye clinic. Their operation worked, mine didn't. So that used to sort of get to me, and I used to be envious of the people who trotted off and go, "No more eye drops." It worked. Mm-hmm. And I was back on the eye drops and back on more eye drops. And that was difficult. But I've come to accept it now. 4 lots of eye drops, 4 times a day. It's part of my life, and it's something I've gotten used to. And I've gotten used to accepting that I just have to find a different way and let people know my limitations. And it's funny, the silly things you have to think about when you've got vision loss. I had my kitchen redone recently, and I had to think carefully about the countertops. And my daughter's like, "Oh, this is lovely, Mum." And I said, "No, I'd spend ages scrubbing that because I'd think it's something had spilt on it." And when I buy kitchen appliances, I have to think, can I see the power button bump-ons, right? But can I see to operate that? And if not, I need to choose a different model that is more suited to my needs. And before, when I was sort of fully sighted, you just didn't think about thinking, "Oh, that's nice, I'll have that," but now you have to take so many things into consideration that, yeah, it's living life, but in a different lane. I think I went off piece there, and I've probably forgotten half of what you asked me, so.
No problem at all. That was brilliant and really honest and open. So thank you for all of that. You talked a little bit there about things like the long cane. You mentioned bump-ons, which I think personally are the greatest invention ever. I wonder what are the solutions have you found to problems? What are the things that you think, wow, this is just brilliant, I love this? Or you also mentioned needing to take, I think you said 4 eye drops.
Yeah.
Which is quite complicated to get the right ones at the right times. What solutions do you have to make sure, for example, you get the right drops at the right time and this sort of thing?
Right. Well, unfortunately, 3 of my eye drops are in those little individual 1-drop capsules, so they all look alike. And because I had the trab in one eye and I've got the shunt in the right eye, one of the eye drops goes in the left eye, but not the right. So I came up with a system of marking the one that goes in the left eye with, if I get it in the individual capsules, I mark the label with a marker, a bright orange marker. So I know that that's the capsule for the left eye only. If I get it in the bottle, I have some orange nail polish that I don't actually use for my nails. I use it to mark my eye drops bottle. So I know that that's the one that goes in the left eye only. The eye drops that I put in at night before I go to bed, I get a blue. I have my biggest fan after the bump-ons is coloured duct tape, and that gets stuck on the bottles, my eye drops bottles. I stick it when I'm in the when I'm washing my hair. I've got coloured tape on the shampoo bottle, so I know which one is a shampoo. And I've also tied some string around the neck of the bottle, so that when I can feel it, I know that that's the shampoo. The one without the string is the conditioner. There are some sort of bands that you can buy called bandits, which are basically thick elastic bands that have raised surfaces with different textures. I haven't been able to find any, but I'm not sure if it's just my area where they haven't got that. So I came up with the string remedy to just put string around the shampoo. I solved the glass breaking problem by purchasing in IKEA these melamine coloured goblets. It comes in a set. I can't remember. I've had them for 9 years now, so I can't remember how many in the set, but everyone's a different colour. I can see them clearly, and when you drop them, they bounce. They don't break. So I don't use glasses anymore to drink out of. I've put those in storage, and I now use these goblets so that I can't hurt myself when I break anything. I stopped chopping myself up, and I use the plastic knives, because especially these are a recent addition to my kitchen, because in lockdown, I was, you have to use all this, what's the thing? I've forgotten the name of it now, hand sanitizer. And I was forever cutting myself, and it was just nightmare. Every time I put sanitizer on, it was like, oh, because I cut myself and I wasn't aware of it. So I got some plastic knives for my granddaughter who loves to cook. And I thought, you know what? Get some for yourself, because you're a danger to yourself with a knife. Of course, we've probably all got a liquid level indicator that helps out when you're making a cup of tea, so that you know when to stop. And it also helps when you're pouring water into a glass. I always fill up liquids over the sink, but I saw a lady, and what she did, if you're not able to stand at the sink or anything, she put the glass in a baking tray, so that if she does overpour, it just goes into the baking tray and not all over your countertop. Those are the major things that I use. Common sense, of course, is the other thing. And of course, there's lots of technology. On my phone, I've got a magnifier. And when I go to restaurants, that's what I use to read the menu, because despite asking every time I go to a restaurant, I haven't had a restaurant yet that's had a large print menu. And it annoys me. So I've got the magnifier on my phone. And there's also apps, because I belong to a technology group in the area that I live, and they've got lots of hints and tips and ideas. And so there's always apps that you can have. Like, I don't use them because I have central vision, but there's apps like Be My Eyes, where you'll get a volunteer will take the call and tell you what color dress you've got. Well, I kind of solved the problem of black or navy blue myself by not buying them. I don't buy black and I don't buy navy blue. Then I don't have the problem of trying to figure out what's black and what's navy blue. But that's not necessarily for everybody. Again, talking books, instead of reading, I listen to my books. I belong to the RNIB Talking Books service, and I get books on a stick, and I can listen to books on my in-house speaker. And I also learned in the technology group to call the in-house speaker Lady A, so she doesn't keep interrupting when you're talking to people. And then of course you've got companies that produce things like, I've got a CCTV magnifier, which comes in, it's a bit ridiculous. I've got this lovely big screen and I use it for threading needles, but it magnifies the things to the right level that I can see to thread a needle if I need to sort of sew up a hem or something like that. But I also use it for, if I just every now and again just need to read a book, I will use the CCTV magnifier, which I managed to get secondhand for a reasonable price. But there's a magnifier. I bought a handheld magnifier that I took into supermarkets with me to look at labels, because that's the other thing, going to a supermarket, it's just colours, just a mass of colours. And I remember going to the supermarket with my daughter and I was looking for soap powder, and I'm picking up this box of soap powder and I'm trotting up to her and she says, "Mum, that's cat food." And I just merely picked it up because it was the right colour. And so I got this handheld magnifier, and then I got my new phone during lockdown, and that's got the magnifier on it, for which I am ever grateful. And it's like my daughter, she has black table mats in her house, and I was helping clear the table one Sunday, and I put this dish of food on this black table mat, and my son-in-law's going, "Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" I don't know. His phone had been on the black table mat, and I had put the dish on top of this table mat, not seeing the phone because it was the same color as the table mat. So yes, you have to sort of get used to doing things differently and finding things that will help you. But there are some funny stories about having glaucoma. But yeah, it's just a matter of finding what suits you. A friend of mine, for instance, he always makes sure all the money, all the paper money in his wallet are £5 notes. And that way he doesn't have to figure out whether it's a 5 or a 10. I know they've changed the notes, so it's supposedly easier for us. But for me, it's the pound coin and the 10p. But I find that if I go to the cashier and I say, "I'm sorry, I'm partially sighted, can you," they're usually really helpful and they will take the pound coin. Nobody's robbed me yet. So far that works for me. And I find that if you're just honest with people, they will sort of be more than helpful. I don't know what else. I've got a list here of some other stuff. Another tip that somebody said was, if you're bending or standing, you can sort of stand up and all of a sudden there's a cupboard that you hadn't seen because you've got no peripherals. If you put your hand a couple of inches above your head when you bend down, or a couple of inches in front of you when you bend down, if there is an object there, your hand will hit it first. Or if you're standing up from somewhere and you put your hand just above your head, if there's an object above, your hand will hit it first, rather than sort of knocking yourself unconscious by jumping up. And especially if you live with other people. I live alone, so pretty much I learned to close cupboard doors when I finished using them. But if you live with somebody and they've left a cupboard door open, just stick your hand above your head before you stand up, and that probably saved you knocking yourself out a couple of times. But those are my hints and tips that I've learned. And of course, contact with other visually impaired people is invaluable, because they also have their, I was asking my friend, because I put the toothpaste on my toothbrush, it drops off, and I go brushing my teeth and there's no toothpaste because toothpaste white, my toothbrush is white. And she said, "Why don't you put the toothpaste straight in your mouth?" And I thought, okay, that's fine for me. Again, I live alone. But if you live with somebody, it might not be hygienic to be sticking the toothpaste straight in your mouth, but it works for me, So it's finding solutions that work for you in your particular situation. I'm an administrator, so I organize, and it's good to have your stuff organized, because if it's in the same place every time, you will find it. When you have low vision, you spend half your time looking for stuff that's actually there, but you just didn't see it. So if you organize yourself and put stuff in the same place, then you don't have to spend half your life searching for it. I sort of alphabetize the condiments in my fridge door, so I know it goes from A at the side at the fridge door, and towards the fridge it goes down, you know, from A through to whatever. So I know where stuff is. I'm rabbiting on again, aren't I?
That's brilliant. Loads of really, really great suggestions there, and I learned some things as well. So that's fantastic. You mentioned then about contact with other visually impaired people. You mentioned earlier on about the ECLO. Would you say that for you, those have been the main things that have helped you find the solutions that you found, or have there been other things that have helped you work out those solutions that work for you?
Those have been the VI groups that I belong to. And in my area, I'm very, very lucky because there are a lot of groups of visually impaired people. Those have been my most valuable source of information because, as I say, initially I struggled and I would try, although I am a touch typist, I would try to use my laptop, but I couldn't see the letters on the keyboard. And it was another VI person said, you know, you can get stickers for those. I wasn't aware of that. And I found that that's been the problem I've had all along. Information is out there, but where do you go for it? Where do you find it? And the source is other people who have to use those facilities, who have to use those systems, who have to use those aids that will say, oh, you know, have you tried this? Or have you gone to this person or gone to this company? Have you tried this organization? They might be able to help. So I think the support from other visually impaired people has been invaluable. My family support me, but they're not quite sure how, because I'm visually impaired and everybody in the visually impaired group is, but none of us knows how the other person sees. And so my family wouldn't have a clue how to help me because they don't know what I can see and what I can't see. And so you have to tell them. But the visually impaired group, yeah, I was so happy, like I said, when I found out I wasn't the only one that knocked over glasses of water. It wasn't me being clumsy, it was part of my condition, you know. And nobody, the one thing I love about the visually impaired group is it's who you are, not what you got, not what you look like, not how you dress, not any of that. It's who you are that matters, you know. So you're accepted for who you are within that group. And everybody laughs at, you know, we all laugh at ourselves. You know, my friend who has a £5 note, he gave his house guests fried radishes with their English breakfast because he thought they were tomatoes. You know, and I came home one day absolutely buzzing with the blueberries I'd bought until I went to wash them and found out they were black grapes. And those are the things you share with the group, and everybody has a laugh. So you sort of you just go, oh well, it's all part of living. Let's get on with it, you know. So I found the visually impaired group has been the most significant support I've had. And secondly, it was the Sensory Advisory Resource Centre who gave me all the tools I needed to be able to get on with my life in the way that I wanted to.
That's great, thank you. So I think the last question that I'll put to you before we open it up to everyone else's questions. You mentioned earlier about glaucoma being the making of you and being really positive for you, and that actually, you know, a lot of people think this sounds a bit strange, you know, unbelievable. And it's something you've said before, it's not just something you've dreamt up for tonight. I wonder whether you could give us just a couple of examples of the ways in which you feel glaucoma has actually made a positive difference.
Okay. before I was diagnosed with glaucoma, the plan was I was going to work until I was about 65, 70, and then retire. I had no clue what I was going to do after that. I like crafting, but it was going to be crafting in the TV for the next however many years of my life. And then I got diagnosed with glaucoma, and then I was introduced to the visually impaired community. And then I was out on a Monday at the singing group, and then I was out on a Tuesday at the technology group, and I was out on a Thursday at the arts and craft group, and I was out on the second Thursday at the visually impaired support group, and then the third Thursday at the ballroom group, and the Friday at the Tai Chi group, and Saturday I was out at the torch group. And all of a sudden my life was just full of activities, and I was meeting people, and I was meeting such lovely people who were so nice and so kind and so generous. And suddenly I had this whole other family, which in essence became my family. You know, there were all these people who were there to help, who were there to support, who were there to advise. And they also provided me with all these interests that I never thought about. I belong to the book group. Now I know what kind of books I like, but through the book group, I read so many different books, and we get together and we critique the books and we have a laugh and stuff like that. And that's because of glaucoma. You know, that's because my glaucoma took me down that road that allowed me to meet all these wonderful people that have just enriched my life endlessly. And because of my glaucoma, I'm able to laugh at myself. Yes, when I did buy the black grapes instead of the blueberries, I sent a picture to my kids and said, this is what happens when you send a visually impaired person to buy blueberries. You know, so I can laugh at myself, you know. It's just really, really wonderful, and it's given me such a positive outlook on life, and I'm so fulfilled in all the different things. And the technology group is wonderful because you learn stuff. Other VI people are wonderful because they're a resource, and it's really, really enriched my life. I remember I went to church one day and told a lady, and she said, "Oh, shall I pray for you?" And I said, "Thank you kindly, but no. I'm happy where I am. You know, I'm happy with what I've got. I'm happy with the life I'm living."
Okay, that's great. Thank you ever so much for all of that. It's hugely informative. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's learned things. I can see we've got some questions come into the Q&A. We've had one asking, what are bump-ons? Yep, sorry, we should have explained that.
I should have explained.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I do have some here. I don't know if
Oh, do you?
see. Yes. I actually had to stick one onto my tablet so I could see where the camera is. I don't know if you can see them, but they are sort of plastic little bump things that you stick on, and I stuck them on the on my cooker, on my washing machine, where the start button is, on all of my appliances. And you can get them, I got all orange, but you can get them in brown, you can get them in white, whatever is your sort of contrast preference. And they're basically just tactile bumps that you stick on to let you know where the power button is on something, or to let you know where as I say, the start button is. I mean, I found that with appliances, manufacturers don't take into consideration visually impaired people. So I've learned my washing machine is 2 clicks to the right or 2 clicks to the left. Likewise with the cooker, but the bump on tells me where the off button is, or where 200 degrees is on my cooker. I'm sorry, I spoke over you. Please go ahead.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, so they come on like a strip of, it's kind of a plastic sheet, isn't it, Jo? And you just peel them off,
Yes,
and stick them down onto whatever you want stick them onto, and they do stick really, really well.
Yes.
I've put them on my rubbish bins, and they've withstood several weeks of quite heavy rain without coming off. It just means that I can identify which bin's which. They're great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had another question saying that, asking about when you were diagnosed, how advanced was your glaucoma at that point, and at what stage did you have to give up driving?
When I was diagnosed, I was well advanced, and to be quite honest, I wasn't aware that it was well advanced. It was several years later, after my consultant had given up on all his efforts to get my eye pressure down. He sent me to Stoke Mandeville, and I was in an office and heard the consultant there speaking to somebody outside the office, and the person said, her glaucoma is well advanced. Basically, I think it was two appointments away. I went to the eye clinic, and the consultant said, there's nothing more we can do for you. You've had all the operations we can give you. You're on all the eye drops we can put you on. And my pressure is still in the high 20s. So it was well advanced at that point, and it's not got any better despite all the operations. But I'm just a one-off. I'm exceptional. I think I made the consultant scratch his head because he just didn't know what next to do with me. Most of the people I did the journey with, they have come off the eye drops, and their eye pressure is well under control.
Great, thank you. And I think it's just worth saying that everyone is different.
Yeah.
Jo, your experience is going to be quite different to a lot of other people's. Someone made the comment that you do seem to have been quite unlucky. And of course, a lot of people, won't be diagnosed with glaucoma until they're older, and they will have, they will keep good sight for the rest of their lives. Doesn't necessarily mean just because you've got glaucoma you are going to lose sight at all.
No.
Right, I can see we've actually got quite a few questions coming in. So we've got one here about getting out and about, particularly how do you get out to all these groups that you go to?
Okay, again, I live in an area where we're quite lucky. All of the groups have volunteers, sighted volunteers, who will give people a lift if you ask. And we also have in my area what they call a reader service. And they offer to visually impaired people, someone who will come to your home and read your mail for you. If you're studying, they'll read your books for you. They will also take you to the theatre if you want to go. They will basically arrange a driver to take you where you want to go. So as I say, I'm very lucky. Personally, I take public transport, and I did buy myself a monocular, which is basically a single lens binocular that I use to see the bus numbers that are coming. But I do have my own little tricks. I tend to wait at bus stops where I know that's the only bus that's going to be stopping there, so I don't have to keep flagging down lorries and the like. But getting out and about in here, there are volunteers in my area who will take you wherever, if somebody's available. So a lot of the groups I go to, there are people whose eyesight is far worse than mine, and they will be brought by a volunteer driver. I get about on public transport at the moment. And we also have a system in this city where you can arrange a drive and they will come and pick you up at a location. But if you register and let them know that you are visually impaired, they will pick you up at your home. It's sort of an addendum to the bus service, which is pretty ropey.
Great, thank you. Several more questions coming in, I see. We've got another one about bump-ons asking, where do you get them from? You can get them from RNIB, your local sight loss organisation may sell them. You can also buy bump-ons from places like Amazon. Jo, do you know any other sources that are good?
No, I did get mine from Sensory Advisory Resource Centre. I know in different towns they're called something slightly different. So I got my first set from there, but subsequently I've ordered them from Amazon. Oh, and there's an organisation called VIP Diaries, where I get my large print diaries and calendars. They also sell bump-ons.
Okay, I hadn't heard of those. That's interesting. Right, we've got another question asking about how bad your vision has to be registered visually impaired. This is quite a complicated one, and if you want a proper answer to this, I suggest you do two things. One, give our helpline a call and they'll be able to talk you through the criteria for certification and registration, and also speak to your eye specialist. The rules are quite complicated, and I think it's probably best you speak directly to someone about your own situation rather than us answering that one on here. There are two levels of registration: sight impaired, used to be called partially sighted, or severely sight impaired blind. And it all depends on how much visual field you've got, as well as how much visual acuity. But you're best to give a helpline a call and they can talk you through it in detail, or speak to your eye specialist. Right, I'm going to, Philippa, can you just quickly scan through the questions and tell me if I've missed any, please?
No, I don't think you have. I think that's generally the gist of everything. Let me just have a wee quick looky and make sure. So we talked about your pressures. If anyone's got any other questions or comments to make, actually at this point, it's probably a good time to do it while we've got the last few minutes. So please do.
If anyone's got any tips that they'd like to share as well, please do that.
I'm amazed by all of Jo's amazing tips. I think I'm going to be using some of these. I'm absolutely amazing, Jo. Got another question come in, Liz. I'm not sure if that's coming up with you.
Could you read it out, Philippa? I think it'll be quicker.
No problem. Do you have a favourite place, Jo, to buy appliances which are particularly helpful or useful?
To be quite honest with you, the two places I do tend to get stuff from is RNIB, the RNIB shop, or Amazon. And I tend to sort of, if I'm looking for something in particular, I will look at the RNIB shop and then I'll look to see if it's cheaper on Amazon, because they do sell RNIB goods on Amazon. But we also have here that they will sometimes have information days in our city, and you go and several different organizations like Sight and Sound Technology, they'll come with the goods that they've got and they will show you what they've got. But I will admit that they tend to be, you know, like readers, magnifiers, electronic magnifiers, etc. They tend to be quite expensive because we're a niche market. So my everyday stuff, I tend to go RNIB, Amazon, and as I said, for my large print diaries and calendar, I go to VIP Diaries, and they're really good. They're absolutely brilliant. And they also sell other things besides just diaries.
That's excellent, Joe. I've got another tip coming, Liz. Do you want to do, or do you want me to?
Yeah, could you?
Cool,
I've
no worries.
lost my place in the list.
No worries, no worries. This is a tip that's come in. I put the eye drops at one side of the sink after the morning dose, then on the windowsill after dose 2, and the shelf after dose 3. I can tell whether or not I have put them by where the bottle is. So it's a great way. Different techniques work for different people. It's whatever works for them, isn't it?
Yeah. I tend to put the ones I haven't yet put in the lid of my container, and once I put them in, I put them back into the container, so I know that whatever's in the lid I haven't yet put in.
See, this is it. It's getting into the routine, isn't it?
Yes, it's finding a routine. And I've got an alarm on my phone, and even my kids now, when they hear the alarm go off, they'll go, "Mum, eye drops."
Which may be irritating for you at some points, I imagine.
Well, the alarm's irritating as well, 4 times a day, it just get to you. And sometimes I'm in the kitchen and I go, "I'm coming."
I see we've got another tip here about using a rollator as well as a white cane, and the fact that if you can actually use your white cane to signify that you've got a sight loss, even if you're using another mobility aid, such as a rollator. So yeah, another good tip.
It sounds awful, but sometimes when I'm using my cane and people trip over it and then look at me as if I'm at fault, I just wish there was some sort of cattle prod at the end of it. Is that an awful thing to say?
Not at all. I think a little electric shock would get people out the way much faster, Joe.
No, I should not have said it. I'm sorry.
No, it's brilliant. I love it. You said, we have to approach these things with humour, don't we?
Yes.
There's another one, Liz, here.
Go
on. After ops, when I have a lot of drops, I use a kitchen timer for the alarms.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Just waiting, just in case anyone's got any final comments to come through. I've got a comment through from Facebook, Liz. Can you see that, or do you want me to read that one?
Can you?
No worries. Thank you, Joanne. You're such an encouragement. Been feeling a bit low, but so much more positive after this evening. And that came from Facebook, Joe. So
thank you. If it's only one person that feels a bit better, it's been worth it.
There's another comment on Zoom saying, "Fabulous talk. Thank you so much. Inspiring woman."
Thank you.
And there's one for us, Liz, about, is this going to be written down?
Oh, it has been recorded, but we don't normally write anything down.
Maybe we'll be able to use this for the basis. Maybe, Joanne, if you don't mind, we could maybe use some of your tips in a future insight article for our magazine.
I don't mind at all. I'm sure there's loads of tips, but they're just the ones that help me throughout the day. So,
well, thank you so much, Joe, for all of that. Clearly, everyone's found it useful and enjoyable. And thank you everyone for taking part. We've had some great tips from you as well as some great questions. So that's fantastic. Philippa, could you launch the second poll for us, please? So again, we're just putting a poll up now to ask how much you feel you know about living with glaucoma, just so that we can gauge how much you've learnt during the session. If you have any unanswered questions following this session, please do give our helpline a call. You can give them a call on 01233 648170. That's 01233 648170, or you can email them at helpline@glaucoma.uk. It's open Monday to Friday, 9:30 AM to 5 PM. And speaking of the helpline, our next digital glaucoma support group is a chance for you to ask our helpline manager, Helen Doe, any questions you might have about driving and glaucoma. It's always a really popular topic because driving, of course, is a real sort of issue of independence. So any questions you've got about driving, come along to that next session on the 28th of November at 7 o'clock in the evening again. And after that one, the next one on the 14th of December will be about open angle glaucoma with Rachel Hilton, a ophthalmic nurse based in the Manchester Royal Eye Hospital. When we end this session, a little survey will pop up asking for feedback. Please do fill that in if you can. We do want to make these sessions as useful to people as possible, and we do look at all that feedback and help us to use it to help us make sessions in the future better. Thank you again, Jo.
Welcome.
Really great stuff. And thank you everyone for taking part. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.